Now let's begin the chapter. So a smiling Rukku Mani threw open the door. Ravi and Meena rushed out. Ravi pulled Mridu into the house. Wait, let me take off my slippers. So over here in the first paragraph, we are describing everything that happened in that house. Just imagine, we are telling you each and everything, that he just opened the door and they two came out, then other one pushed the other one. Protested Mridu. So let me take off my slippers, she said. She set them out neatly near a pair of the larger black ones. Those were grey actually with the dust. So basically those slippers were black in color, but they appeared grey because the dust settled on them. You could see the clear mark of every toe on the front part of each slipper. So what happens when we wear a slipper for a longer period? Those slippers have the marks of the toes. The marks for the two big toes were large and scrawny. Mridu didn't have much time to wonder about those slippers they were, because Ravi dragged her to the backyard behind a thick bittery bush. So this entire thing happened. There was another pair of slipper which was already there, and she didn't have the time. She opened her slipper next to those slippers, but to whom those big slippers were belonged to, she did not have time to think about that. There, inside a torn football, lined with sacking and filled with sand, lay a very small kitten. Now who is a kitten? A baby cat is kitten. So it was basically an unused and in a bad condition a football, and inside that there was a kitten. Lapping up milk. Lapping means, have you ever seen cats and dogs? How do they drink milk and other liquids? They just drink it with their tongue. So that entire process is known as lapping up the milk from a coconut half shell. So that was a used coconut shell and a half shell in which there was a milk which was served to that kitten, and that kitten was lapping up the milk. We found him outside the gate this morning. Now they have started describing that where did they found this kitten. It was outside their gate. He was mewing and mewing. Mewing is the sound that is that what the cat makes. So they say because she was very hungry, that's why it started mewing. Said Meena, it's a secret. Amma says Patti will leave. Now Patti is a grandmother. This language is basically used in Tamil Nadu side. So over there, to grandmother, to whom we generally call as Dadima or Ma or Dadi, they call it as Patti. So she started explaining that my Amma says that Patti will leave for Puddu Mama's house if she knows we have a cat. So why were they hiding the cat? Because with them their grandmother used to stay. And this girl is explaining the reason that if my grandmother will get to know that we have a kitten or we have a cat, she will leave our house and she'll go and stay at Mama's place. People are always telling us to be kind to animals, but when we are, they scream. So now she says the same thing. Oh, don't bring that dirty creature here, said Ravi. Do you know how hard it is to get a little milk from the kitchen? Patti saw me with a tumbler with a glass in my hand just now, and I told her that I am very hungry, I want to drink, but the way she looked at me, I had to drink most of it to throw her back of the scent. So throw her back of the scent means to do something which makes someone other believe that you have actually not done that thing. So now Ravi is saying it was so difficult for me to get little milk for this kitten because Patti was looking at me as if I am doing something wrong, as if I am hiding something from her. Then she wanted the tumbler back. Patti, Patti, I will wash it myself. Now somehow Ravi had to convince the grandmother that don't worry, I will just drink the milk and later on I will wash the tumbler. Why should I put you to trouble? I told her. I had to run and pour the milk into this coconut shell and then run and wash the tumbler and put it back before she got really suspicious. So Ravi just narrated the entire incident, that how where the kitten get from and where they got the milk from. Now we have to think of some other way to feed Mahendran. Mahendran, this little kitty's name is Mahendran. Mridu was impressed. And why was Mridu impressed? Because this was a real name and it was not just a cute kitty cat name. Actually, his full name is Mahendra Varma Pallava Punnai. So in Tamil Nadu they have this kind of names, if not special in Tamil Nadu, but if you go towards the south, people have this kind of big names. MP Punnai for short if you like. He's a fine breed of cat. Now Ravi started explaining, about boasting about the cat. He also named the cat. Just look at his fur, like a lion's mane. And what's the emblem of ancient Pallav kings was? Don't you? He looked expectantly at Mridu and Mridu giggled. Giggled means giving a good laugh is giggling. Think I'm joking? Now Ravi says, do you think I'm joking because I'm asking you a question and instead of answering you're laughing at me? So I believe that you think that I'm joking. Well, just wait. I'll show you sometime. It's clear you don't know a thing about history. Now again Ravi, started flamboyanting his knowledge that you don't know nothing about history. Haven't been to Mahabalipuram, have you? He said mysteriously. Now he took a name of a specific place and then he asked, have you ever been there? Well, when our class went to Mahabalipuram, I saw a statue of this Tathas, etc., etc. So Tatha is basically grandfather. So he wanted to just talk about some of the ancestors. So Tathas here so many times means grandfathers and his grandfather. That means he was talking about the ancestors. Then what happened? Fact is, Mahendran here is descendant from that very same ancient cat. So he saw somewhere that cat and now he is relating. He actually did not see, it was like a picture on some emblem and then he was just relating because the way that cat was looking and the way Mahendran was looking looked to Ravi as if they both are same. A close relative, scientifically speaking, of none other than the lion. The Pallav's lion, emblem of the Pallav dynasty. Ravi went on walking around the bittery berry bush, waving up a twig up and down and his eyes were sparkling. The cat is a descendant of none other than the Mahabalipuram Rishi cat. Now I tell you this Ravi, he was too good at making false stories. It was just a normal kitten to which Ravi just related to some of the ancient kings. But I am really loving this boy because he has the skill of telling stories and weaving good things about whatever he has to convince the other people. So, and if I may just remind you, they worshipped cats in ancient Egypt. And one more thing which I have noticed about Ravi, I don't know whether you have noticed it or not, that he is very knowledgeable. He can relate to everything that he has studied, that he has noticed sometime when he went on to some educational tour with his class. So that's a very fantastic thing I have noticed about Ravi. How he loved the sound of his own voice. Meena and Mridu exchanged looks. So now because Ravi was telling stories and those two girls, they were sitting and they were watching. So when there is something strange or when there is something that you want to share but you don't want to speak, what happens? At that time we exchange looks. We look at each other and either we smile or we frown or we make faces. That means we are exchanging the looks. What does that have to do with anything? Now they put up a question that you are telling us all these things. What do we have to do with them? Mridu demanded. I am telling you that the cat is descendant from the Egyptian cat god. No, goddess. So he was a little confused, god or goddess. Then he thought, okay, if this cat is a female one, then it relates to some of the ancient Egyptian goddess. So, well, one of the descendant of that cat goddess was a stowaway in one of the Pallav's ship. And his descendant was the Mahabalipuram Rishi cat, whose descendant is Ravi flourished his twig at Mahendran. So after giving a huge explanation, he just related to both of the stories, that the Pallav's cat and the Egyptian cat, and then finally he just pointed his twig at Mahendran because he wanted to build that Mridu and the other girl, Ravi wanted them to believe his false stories. MP Punnai here, whoop, eek, he shrieked, very pleased with himself because now, as I told you, even I am very pleased with Ravi. So Ravi must also be very happy with whatever he has told. Mahendran looked up, alarmed. Now, since the milk was finished, so Mahendran looked up, and alarmed means in a very conscious position. He had just been sharpening his claws at the edge of the coconut shell. So once after finishing the milk, the kitten was busy sharpening her nails. But worse than Ravi's awful whoop, ick was a screech from the window. Now, Immediately there was a gesture that Ravi made, and suddenly there was a creak sound that also came, which even made Mahendran look in a very different manner. So from the window, and where that sound came from, where it came from a window. What a weird sound. Weird means something very unusual, very different. So it was a very weird sound that came out from that window. If Mradu was startled, MP Purnai was frightened out of his wits. So we are here telling you the gestures which everybody gave, including that kitten, because that sound was so very weird. Here, standing on one end, he bounced up and scurried towards a bamboo tray of red chilies that had been set up to dry. Now the kitten was scared, so it jumped and accidentally jumped on a tray of red chilies which was set up to dry. Trying to hide beneath, he tipped up a few chilies over himself. Meow! He howled miserably. Now a cat, it was a small kitten, and if something bad will happen, obviously it will make its best sound. The screeching went on, but even after so many things happened, the screeching did not stop. What's that noise? Said Mridu. That's Lally learning to play the violin, grunted Ravi. Now everybody was so shocked that where is the sound coming from? So out of curiosity, when Mridu asked, so Ravi gave the reason that it's Lally who is trying to learn how to play violin. She will never learn a thing. The music master just goes on playing like a train, whizzing and on, and Lally every time she is derailing, going completely off the track. Mridu crept up to the window. Lally was sitting a little distance away now. Out of curiosity, everybody went to the window from where the sound was coming, and they peeped in, and they saw that Lally was sitting a little distance away, awkwardly holding the violin and bowstrings, and her elbows jutting down and her eyes glazed with concentration. So she was trying to concentrate, but there are few things which you are not good at. So the same was the case with Lally. In front of her, with most of his back to the window, was the bony figure of the music master. Bony figure here means that the music master must be very thin and frail. He had mostly bald head with a fringe of oiled black hair. Fringe means the hair that you get on your foreheads, mostly failing around his ears, and an old-fashioned tuft. A tuft means a small pony that usually the bald people have. If you have ever seen pandit types of people, they keep a tuft. A gold chain gleamed around his leathery neck, and a diamond ring glittered on his hand as it glided up and down the stream of the violin. A large foot stuck out from the beneath his gold bordered vishti edge. Vishti is the dhoti which they wear, and he was beating time on the floor with a scrawny big toe. He played a few notes. Now this was the entire description of how the music master was looking, what all he was wearing as accessories, and what he was doing. Lally stumbled behind him on her violin, which looked quite helpless and unhappy in her hands. Here we are describing the condition of the violin. Obviously, it is not an animate object, it is a non-living object. Non-living things, they don't have feelings. But here we are trying to relate with the situation that the violin was so unhappy, because in whoever hand the violin is, that person needs to play it very melodiously, which Lally was not able to. So here the poet is describing how the violin was feeling. What a difference! The music master's notes seemed to float up and settle perfectly into the invisible tracks of the melody. It was like the wheels of a train fitting smoothly into the rails and whistling along, as Ravi said. Mridu stared at that huge bewitched hand moving effortlessly up the violin's stem, making lovely music. So there were two people sitting simultaneously in front of each other. One was making melodious music out of that violin, and other was just like, rails going off the track. Squawk! There was Lally derailing again. Amma came a wail from the gate. Amman, oh, Ravi said the beggar, send that beggar away. So Amma, there, when these kids were busy watching Lally and the music master playing the violin and Lally learning how to play the violin, immediately Amma called from somewhere instructing Ravi to send a beggar away. That means now there was a beggar in that house, and Amma was saying that tell that beggar to go away. cried his mother from the back veranda where she was chatting with Tapi. He had been coming here every day for the past week and it's time he found another house to beg from. Pati explained to Tapi. Mridu and Meena followed Ravi out because it was Ravi who was instructed to send the beggar. So Ravi first walked and then Mridu and Meena followed him. The beggar was already in the garden making himself quite at home. He had spread his upper cloth under the neem tree because there was a neem tree in their ground or whatever you want to say, in their veranda, wherever. And since that beggar was trying to make himself comfortable as it was really hot outside, so he just took off his upper cloth and he was spreading it under the neem tree and was leaning against its trunk, apparently prepared to take a little snooze while he waited for the elms to appear. Go away, said Ravi sternly. Sternly means strictly. My Pati says it's time for you to find another house to beg from. The beggar opened his eyes very wide and gazed at each of the children one by one. Gazed means looking someone continuously. The ladies of this house, he said, at last in a voice choked with feeling, are very kind souls. I have kept my body with soul together on their generosity for one whole week. I cannot believe that they would turn me away, he raised his voice. So now the beggar was unwilling to go. He said, for past 1 week I had rested here and they are very kind souls and I was not expecting such kind of behavior from them. It's almost a week I have been resting here and now suddenly they want me to go out. Amma, Amma, oh, said his wail. Might, but, it was like said might be his wail. So the sound that the beggar make or the cry for help which he made calling out Amma's name was really said, but it wasn't feeble. Feeble means weak. So here the poet is trying to relate with this thing that when you are said, generally your voice is very feeble, but it is not like that. In the case of the beggar, the voice was said, but it was quite audible. It began in a deep, strong rumble somewhere in his withered belly and came booming out of his mouth with its few remaining teeth stained brown with betel chewing. Betel is the supari which we say in Hindi usually. So because that beggar was chewing betel, so all his teeth were turned brown color. Ravi, tell him there's nothing left in the kitchen called Rukumani and he has not to come again, tell him that. Now they gave 2 instructions, that first there's nothing in the kitchen now for him and second tell him not to come again. She sounded fed up. Now this time when Rukumani said, her voice was looking as if now she is really irritated, she's up with the things and she doesn't want that beggar to come again. Ravi didn't have to repeat all those things to the beggar because what the mothers told was very easily audible as the beggar was there under the tree only. So the beggar sat up and sighed. Sigh means taking a deep breath. It could be out of relaxation or could be out of sadness, could be out of anything. I will go, I'll go, he said wearily. Only let me have a rest under this tree. The sun is so hot. The tar has melted on the road. Tar means the black thing, coal tar out of which the roads are made. My feet are already blistered. Blistered means if you must have seen if you have ever worn new shoes and you got a blister on your finger. So the same kind of blisters were there on his feet because he used to walk barefoot. He stretched out his feet to show large pink peeling blisters on the soles of his bare feet. I suppose he doesn't have money to buy chappals. Now what was the reason? Because he was not having any money and the children guessed that he doesn't have money to buy the chappals. Mridu whispered to Meena, Ravi, have you got an old pair in the house somewhere? Now that girl asked, do you have any old pair? Because generally at our homes, we do have some old pairs which are unused. I don't know, said Ravi. Mine are too small to fit his feet or I would have given them to him. And his feet are larger than Mridu's and Meena's. The beggar was shaking out his upper cloth and tightening his dhoti because now he was preparing himself as he has to leave. He raised his eyes and looked fearfully at the road gleaming in the afternoon. Gleaming means shining. So they were actually not shining, but what happens on a sunny afternoon? That because of the sun's heat, the roads they shine. He needs something on his feet, Meena said, her big eyes filling. It's not fair. Shh, said Ravi. I am thinking about it. Blubbering, it's not fair, it isn't going to help. In 2 minutes, he'll be frying up his feet on the road. Frying up means because it was very hot. What he needs is a pair of chappals. So where do we get them? Now he asked, from where should we go and get the chappals? Come, let's search the house. He pushed Mridu and Meena into the house. Just as she stepped into the veranda, Mridu's eyes fell on the old looking chappals she had noticed when she arrived. So when Mridu came, we discussed it in the beginning, no, that when Mridu came, she opened her chappals. Those chappals were basically turned into grey, they were of black color. So she noticed those same chappals. Ravi, she whispered to him, whose are those? Now she asked Ravi that whose these chappals are. Ravi turned and glanced at the shabby looking but sturdy old slippers. No doubt they were dirty, but they were very sturdy, they were very strong. He beamed and nodded. So he wasn't aware that to whom these slippers belong. These are just the right size, he said, picking them up. So he wasn't aware to whom it belonged, but the only thought that was in Ravi's mind was to get a pair of slippers for that beggar. So he thought that it's the right size, so he picked them up. Meena followed him nervously into the garden. Here, said Ravi to the beggar, dropping the slippers in front of the old man. Wear them and don't come back. So he just took off the slippers, he gave it to the beggar and instructed him that wear them and do not come again. The beggar stared at the slippers, hurriedly flung his towel over his shoulders, pushed his feet into them and left. What it means that he got ready, and the moment he saw that there are slippers which can fit into his feet, he quickly wore those slippers and left, muttering a blessing to the children because he was happy, so he blessed them. In a minute, he had vanished around the corner of the street. He walked fast because if somebody could have noticed, they could have called him back and asked for the slippers. So before anybody could notice, he just walked away. In a minute, he vanished at the corner of the street. The music master came out of the house and took an unappreciative look at the three of them sitting quietly under the tree playing marbles. Now, music master came out and he was not very happy, so he gave an unappreciative look. Then he searched for his chappals in the veranda where he had put them because he removed his slippers over there. So he was looking for his slippers over there, but his slippers were not there because those kids, they weren't aware to whom these slippers belong. So they picked those slippers and very nicely they gifted it to the beggar. So kind gesture, no? Lalli, he called. After a few moments, she hurried up to him. So the master called Lalli and Lalli quickly went up. Have you seen my chappals, my dear? I remember having kept them here. Ravi, Mridu and Meena silently watched Lalli and the music master search every corner of the veranda. He scurried around, looking over the railing and crouching near the flower pots to look between them. So, because since it was a veranda, there were trees growing, there must be some flower pots that must be placed over there. So, they were looking here and there for those chappals. Brand new they were. I went on all the way to the Mount Road to buy them. He went on saying, now he was just talking about these chappals because he was really worried as he couldn't find them. They cost a whole month's fees. Do you know? Soon Lalli went into to tell the mother because now some incident has happened. So she went inside and she narrated the entire incident to the mother. Rukkumani appeared looking embarrassed with Patti following her. So both of them, the mother and the grandmother, they both came out. Where could they be? Everybody just had the same question. Where could they be? Where could they be? Where did you open them? All those common questions which everybody asks when you find something that is missing. It is really quite upsetting to think someone might have stolen them. So many vendors come to the door, were it Patti. Rukkumani caught sight of Ravi, Mridu and Meena sitting under the tree. So they were sitting under the tree and Rukkumani saw them. Have you children? She began, and then seeing they were curiously quiet, she went on more slowly, because if something happened, the kids are very excited because if everybody is looking for something and if there are three kids that are sitting aside and are not interested on what is going on, there are more reasons to be doubtful about. So that was the reason Rukkumani came and she asked them, and when she saw that gesture that these kids are sitting really quiet, she asked more slowly, seen anyone lurking around the veranda? So have you seen anybody doing that? A sharp V-shaped line formed between her eyebrows. Another straight, tighter one appeared in place of her usually soft, pleasant mouth. Rukumani was angry, thought Mridu with a shiver. Now, because the kind of the facial expressions that the mother was giving made Mridu believe that Mama is angry. She wouldn't be so upset if she knew about the poor beggar with sores on his feet, she tried to tell herself. Now Mridu was trying to convince herself that right now mother is angry, but if in case we tell her that what have we done to those chappals, where those chappals have gone, she might not be this angry. Taking a deep breath, she cried, Rukumani, there was a beggar here. Poor thing, he had such boils on his feet. So, said Rukumani grimly, okay, now so what can we do? Turning to Ravi. You gave the music master chappals to that old beggar who turns up here? Children these days, groaned Pati. Now, out of anger, Pati says, oh my God, children these days, they don't understand anything. Amma, didn't you tell me about Kern who gave away everything he had, including his gold earrings? He was so kind and generous. Now, he related to the story of Karan, whom this grandmother must have told them someday, and then he just related the entire incident that you told me that when he gifted he was kind and generous. Today we did the same. Silly, snapped Rukumani. Kern didn't give away other people's things. He only gave away his own. But my chappals wouldn't have fitted the beggar's feet. Ravi rushed brashly on. So Ravi kept on explaining the reason that I would have given my own chappal, but they wouldn't have fit that beggar. So instead of giving my own things, I took those chappals and I gave it to the beggar. And Amma, if they did fit, would you really not have minded? Ravi, said Rukumani, very angry now. Go inside this minute. So now Rukumani was even more angry and she instructed those kids that right now only you go inside. She hurried indoors and brought up Gopu Mama's hardly worn new chappals. These should fit you. So, because there has to be some replacement, otherwise the music master won't go barefoot back to his house or wherever he was supposed to go back. So, Rukumani went inside and she brought Gopu Mama's hardly worn new chappals. Please put them on, and I am so sorry, my son has been very naughty. The music master's eyes lifted up, because they were new chappals. So instead of his old chappals, he was getting a new pair, and that made him really happy, and that's why his eyes were lit up. Trying not to look too happy, but he somehow tried to control his feelings, his emotions, his gestures. Well, I suppose these will have to do. These days, children have no respect for elders. What to do? Now, he just gave a comment that children, they don't have respect. A human incarnate. Hanuman incarnate here means that, nowadays kids are as naughty as monkeys are. Only Ram can save such naughty fellow. Rukumani's eyes flashed. Eyes flashed means having a bad experience or showing that you are unhappy about something. She didn't seem to like Ravi being called a monkey, even a holy monkey. She stood stiff and straight by the front door because she wanted that music teacher to leave right now. When he clattered off in his new chappals, she said, Mridu, come in and have some tiffin. Honestly, how do you children think of such things? Now, Rukumani was surprised that how can you think of such thing, that there's a chappal lying, there's a beggar who is in need of chappals, and then you related both the things and you gave it, and then you narrated the entire story also. Thank God your Gopu Mama doesn't wear his chappals to work. As she walked towards the kitchen with Mridu and Meena. So now mother was also saying all these things. She suddenly began to laugh, and the moment she was moving towards the kitchen, she started to laugh. But he is always in such a hurry to throw off his shoes and socks and get into the chappals as soon as he come home. What's your mama going to say this evening when I tell him that I gave his chappals to the music master? So now mother had a question in her mind that, okay, you settled the things between the music master and the beggar, but am I going to say to your mama when he will come back home, he will remove his shoes because he is in such a hurry to get into the slippers? Now what I am going to say to him? And that's how they concluded this entire incident. I myself found this chapter really interesting, though kids are very innocent, and this chapter has proved this thing that kids are really generous. They don't think about the goods and the bads that will happen later, but they always believe in helping someone with such a kind and caring heart. Thank you.